that befell me, allow me to recount my life before these fateful events. I was born and raised in the land of Uz, an area east of Canaan, at a time when wisdom and righteousness were highly valued. From a young age, I was educated in the ways of justice and the fear of God, values that accompanied me throughout my life. As the years passed, I became known as the greatest of all men in the East. My reputation was not based solely on material wealth, although I had plenty. I possessed 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, and 500 donkeys. My herds stretched across vast pastures, and caravans laden with goods traversed the trade routes under my care. A multitude of servants tended to my properties, and my name was spoken with respect in the marketplaces and in the tents of nomads. But the true source of my prestige lay in my conduct. I was known as a man of integrity and uprightness, who feared God and turned away from evil. My life was guided by justice and compassion. I did not hesitate to reach out to those in need, whether an orphan without protection or a destitute widow. The words of the Most High were my guide, and I followed them with unwavering devotion. My family was my greatest treasure. I was blessed with 7 sons and 3 daughters, all raised to honor God and respect their neighbors. Our home was a place of joy and celebration. Regularly, my children would gather for feasts, taking turns as hosts. After each cycle of festivities, I would rise early and offer burnt offerings for each of them. Perhaps my children have sinned and cursed God in their hearts, I thought. Thus was my constant custom. The life I led was considered exemplary by my contemporaries. Many came to me seeking counsel, and my word was respected in the assemblies of the elders. When I spoke, all fell silent. When I smiled, it encouraged them. I chose the path for them and presided as a king among his troops, like one who comforts those who mourn. However, not everything in my life was perfect. We lived in a time of uncertainties, where nomadic tribes frequently attacked settlements and caravans. The threat of invasions from the Sabaeans and Chaldeans was constant. But I trusted in divine protection and the strength of my servants to keep my family and properties safe. In those days, religion permeated every aspect of our existence. We believed that God rewarded the righteous with prosperity and punished the wicked with adversities. This belief was deeply rooted in our culture, and I, in my piety, was seen as a living example of this truth. But what no one knew, not even I, was that my faith was about to be tested in ways I could never have imagined. In the heavenly halls, a conversation was about to change the course of my life forever. Imagine, if you will, the divine council gathered. God himself, as an uninvited intruder, was Satan, the accuser. It was in this cosmic setting that my name was mentioned. "Have you considered my servant Job?" the Lord asked. "There is no one on earth like him, blameless and upright, who fears God and turns away from evil." Little did I know that these divine words, though a supreme compliment, would be the prelude to my trial. Satan, in his cunning, questioned the authenticity of my faith. "Does Job fear God for no reason? Have you not put a hedge around him, his house, and all that he has? You have blessed the work of his hands, and his herds are spread throughout the land. But stretch out your hand and touch all that he has, and he will surely curse you to your face." These words, spoken in the heavenly realms, would echo into my life in ways I could never foresee. Permission was granted, and the stage was set for a trial that would test the limits of my faith and endurance. Meanwhile, in my home in Uz, I continued my usual life, unaware of the cosmic drama unfolding. I oversaw my herds, advised the needy, and offered sacrifices to God. The peace and prosperity I knew were about to be shaken to their foundations. It is important to understand the cultural context in which I lived. In ancient Mesopotamia, wealth was not merely a matter of comfort, but a tangible sign of divine favor. Each sheep, each camel, each piece of land was seen as a direct blessing from God. My position as the greatest of all men in the East was not just a title of social prestige, but an affirmation of my supposed righteousness before the Most High. The laws and customs of our time were strict. Hospitality was sacred, and refusing to help someone in need was considered a grave offense, not just against man, but against God himself. I strived to meet and even exceed these expectations, not out of obligation, but from a genuine conviction that it was the right thing to do. My daily routine was a testimony to this devotion. At dawn, I would rise to offer sacrifices. During the day, I would oversee my business with justice and fairness. At night, I gathered my family for moments of instruction and worship. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, I would often tell my children, echoing the ancient traditions of our people. Little did I know that every aspect of this life I cherished, my wealth, my family, my health, my reputation, would be put to the test. The conversation in the heavenly halls was about to unleash a series of events that would lead me to the depths of despair and, ultimately, to a deeper understanding of the nature of God and faith. As the sun set on that fateful day, I retired to sleep, grateful for another day of blessings, unaware that the dawn would bring the beginning of a journey that would test every fiber of my being. The story of my suffering was about to begin, but with it would come a revelation of the greatness and mystery of God that I could never have imagined in my days of prosperity. The day dawned like any other, but I soon realized that something was terribly wrong. A servant came running, breathless and with a pale, terrified face. "My lord," he said, trembling, "the Sabaeans have attacked. They took the oxen and the donkeys and killed the other servants. Only I escaped to tell you." I barely had time to process this news when another servant appeared, equally disturbed. Fire fell from the sky and consumed the sheep and the shepherds. Only I survived to bring you the news. My heart began to tighten, a feeling of dread settling in my chest. A third messenger arrived, his words cutting like a dagger. The Chaldeans formed 3 groups and attacked the camels, taking them away. They put the other servants to the sword. Only I managed to escape to tell you. With each report, I felt as if the ground beneath my feet was disappearing. All my wealth, accumulated over years of hard work and divine blessing, evaporated in a matter of moments. But the worst was yet to come. The last messenger brought the news that shattered my heart. "Your sons and daughters were feasting in the house of the eldest brother when a strong wind blew in from the desert and struck the 4 corners of the house. It collapsed on them, and they all died. Only I escaped to tell you." At that moment, I felt as if my entire world had crumbled. Everything I loved, everything that gave meaning to my life, was ripped away from me in a single devastating day. The pain was unbearable, beyond anything I had ever experienced. In the midst of my anguish, I rose up, tore my robe, and shaved my head, traditional signs of mourning in our culture. Then I fell to the ground in worship. The words that came out of my mouth surprised even me. "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I shall return. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." Even in the midst of the deepest pain, I did not curse God. My faith, though shaken, remained intact. I did not understand why these terrible events were happening, but I clung to the belief that God was sovereign over all things. In the days that followed, I struggled to find meaning amidst the chaos. My surviving servants looked to me for guidance, but I could barely find the strength to get up each morning. The news of my misfortune spread quickly, and soon I found myself not only stripped of possessions and family, but also of social status. Those who had once revered me as an example of divine blessing now whispered and speculated about what terrible sin I might have committed to deserve such punishment. The theology of retribution, so deeply ingrained in our society, was now turned against me. My wife, in her own pain and confusion, challenged me. "Do you still hold fast to your integrity? Curse God and die?" Her words cut me deeply, but I responded, "You speak as one of the foolish women. Shall we receive good from God, and shall we not receive evil?" Little did I know that this trial was only the beginning. In the heavenly halls, a second conversation was taking place. Satan, not satisfied with my initial response, argued that I only maintained my integrity because my own skin had been spared. With divine permission, he was granted the authority to strike my health, with the sole restriction of sparing my life. Thus, in the blink of an eye, I was afflicted with terrible sores from head to toe. My body, once healthy and strong, became a constant source of pain and discomfort. Sitting among the ashes, I scraped my wounds with a piece of pottery, seeking some relief from my physical suffering. At this point of total desolation, 3 of my friends, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, came to visit me. When they saw me from a distance, they hardly recognized me. They wept, tore their robes, and threw dust on their heads in mourning. For 7 days and 7 nights they sat with me in silence, mute witnesses to my misery. As they remained silent, I struggled internally. I questioned the purpose of my suffering, the justice of God, the meaning of my own existence. The faith that once seemed unshakable was now tested beyond its limits. It was in this moment of deep darkness that I began to voice my anguish, initiating a series of laments and questions that would mark the beginning of a long and painful dialogue, not only with my friends, but with God Himself. The silence of my friends, initially a comfort, became oppressive. When I finally opened my mouth, it was to curse the day I was born. "Perish the day I was born," I cried, "and the night it was said, 'A boy is born.'" My anguish overflowed in bitter words, questioning the purpose of my existence amidst so much suffering. It was Eliphaz who first responded. With words he believed to be comforting, he began to expound his view on my situation. "Consider this," he said. "Who being innocent ever perished? Where have the upright been destroyed?" His logic was clear. Suffering comes as a result of sin. If I was suffering, there must be some hidden transgression in my life. Bildad and Zophar followed the same line of reasoning. Each in their own way insisted that my suffering was divine punishment, a call to repentance. Their words, although well-intentioned, were like salt in my wounds. They did not understand that my integrity was not a mask, but the core of my being. With each veiled accusation, each suggestion of hidden guilt, I responded vehemently. "I know I am blameless," I asserted, "but how can a mortal be just before God?" My frustration grew not only with my friends, but with the divine silence itself. I longed for an audience with the Most High, a chance to present my case directly to Him. The physical pains were constant, an incessant reminder of my miserable condition. The sores covering my body gave me no rest. At night, when others found relief in sleep, I tossed in agony. When I lie down, I think, how long before I get up? The night drags on and I toss and turn until dawn, I lamented. Social isolation amplified my suffering. Those who once respected me now avoided me. Children mocked me, and I became an object of disdain for those who once held me in high esteem. "God has made me the target of His arrows," I declared in my anguish, feeling not only abandoned by men, but also by God. As my friends persisted in their theories of divine retribution, I continued to assert my innocence. I did not deny God's sovereignty or His justice, but questioned the simplistic application of that justice in my case. Even if I were innocent, my mouth would condemn me. Even if I were blameless, it would declare me guilty, I argued, expressing the complexity of defending oneself before the divine. It was at that moment that a fourth speaker entered the scene. Elihu, younger than the others, had patiently listened to the debate. Indignant both at my insistence on justifying myself and at my friend's inability to refute me properly, he offered a different perspective. "God is greater than man," Elihu declared, suggesting that suffering could have purposes beyond mere punishment. He argued that God sometimes uses suffering to refine character, to teach, and to prevent people from falling into sin. His words, while still not entirely satisfying, opened a new dimension to the debate. As Elihu spoke, a change began to occur. The sky darkened, and a strong wind began to blow. Suddenly, amid a whirlwind, the voice of God Himself was heard. "Who is this that obscures my plans with words without knowledge?" thundered the divine voice. What followed was a series of questions that exposed the vastness of God's knowledge and power in contrast to my limited human understanding. "Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth?" God asked. "Who shut up the sea behind doors when it burst forth from the womb, when I made the clouds its garment and thick darkness its swaddling band?" Each divine question revealed an aspect of creation and providence that was beyond my comprehension. From the depths of the sea to the constellations of the sky, from the habits of wild animals to the mysteries of weather, God demonstrated His absolute sovereignty over all creation. In light of this overwhelming revelation of divine majesty, my perspective began to change. I realized that I had spoken of things I did not understand, of wonders that were beyond me. My ears had heard of you, I confessed, but now my eyes have seen you. Therefore I despise myself and repent in dust and ashes. This encounter with God did not directly answer my questions about the reason for my suffering. Instead, it provided something deeper, an understanding of the vastness of God's wisdom and power, before which my complaints seemed insignificant. After my repentance, God turned to my friends. "I am angry with you," he said to Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, "because you have not spoken of me what is right, as my servant Job has." I was instructed to pray for them, so that God would not deal with them according to their folly. The act of interceding for those who had unjustly accused me was a turning point. As I prayed for my friends, I felt a weight being lifted from my shoulders. The bitterness that had accumulated during months of suffering began to dissipate. It was then that God began to restore my fortunes. Relatives and friends who had distanced themselves during my time of affliction returned. They brought gifts and offered comfort, acknowledging the suffering I had endured. Gradually my health was restored. The sores disappeared, and my body regained its strength. My herds began to grow again, surpassing in number what I had previously owned. The Lord blessed the latter part of Job's life more than the former part, people said, marveling at the change in my fortunes. I was blessed with 7 sons and 3 daughters, just as before. My daughters were known as the most beautiful in all the land, and contrary to the customs of the time, I gave them an inheritance along with their brothers. I lived to see my children and grandchildren to the 4th generation. When I finally departed this world at the age of 140, I was a satisfied man, having experienced not only the depths of suffering, but also the heights of divine grace. My story, however, is not just about loss and material restoration. It is a testament to the complexity of faith, the unfathomable wisdom of God, and the human spirit's ability to persevere through the most severe trials. Through my suffering, I learned that the relationship between God and man transcends the simple logic of reward and punishment. I discovered that true faith is not one that never questions, but one that persists even when all answers seem distant. My journey serves as a reminder that suffering, no matter how incomprehensible it may seem, is not always a punishment. Sometimes it is a mystery that leads us to a deeper understanding of God and ourselves. By sharing my story, I hope that those facing their own trials find comfort and strength. May they know that even in the darkest nights of the soul, there is hope. For the God who allows suffering is the same one who, in his infinite wisdom and love, works all things for the good of those who love him. Thus, I conclude my account, not as a man who has found all the answers, but as someone who has learned to trust even without fully understanding. May my story stand as a testimony to God's faithfulness and the resilience of the human spirit